Okay, this is our video for net worth, guys. And make sure that in your table of contents, you have net worth on pages 18 through 19. So now let's flip over to page 18. It should be right behind your fractions foldable. And no time to read it in my notes. So on page 18, first off, we're going to start off by telling you exactly what net worth is. And net worth is just the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So you're either going to have a positive or a negative net worth. If your assets are more than your liabilities, you have a positive net worth, and that's going to make you happy. Smiley face. If your net worth is negative, then that means your liabilities are more than your assets, which that should not make you happy. Okay, we have some steps for calculating net worth. And I'm trying to get all this on the page. So the first thing we want to do is separate our assets and our liabilities into two separate columns. So figure out which is assets and which is liabilities. And in case you hadn't noticed, every time you see assets, I have it in green because that's the good things. And the liabilities are in red because we don't like those. Okay, so assets are things that you own. So you have basically outright paid for them. Let me start that over so you can see it all. And so they have a positive cash value. So things such as your house that you can pay off, or a car that is paid off, furniture, savings accounts, as long as it's positive. No, things like that you have already purchased and you own. And a lot of things like house and the car, they can be both assets and liabilities. The part that you have paid for is going to be your asset. The part that you still own is your liability. So that brings us to liabilities, which are debts that you owe. So they're things that you're still paying for. They have a negative cash value because that money is still coming out of your pocket or bank account. So things that are debts are like car loans, house mortgages, credit cards, student loans. So things that you still are having to pay a bank or financial institution for are going to be considered your liabilities. Okay, after you determine what your assets and your liabilities are, step 2 is you're going to add together all your assets and then add together all the liabilities. Okay, once you get those two totals, you're going to subtract them. And once you do that subtraction, it's going to tell you what your net worth is. So again, if your assets are more than your liabilities, your net worth is positive, which is what you want. If the liabilities are more, you have a negative net worth, which you don't want. Okay, if I'm moving too fast, you know to pause the video and write. Okay, and right down here at the bottom, it says rent and utilities are not considered liabilities that affect your net worth. And that's because you don't pay them to a bank or a financial institution monthly. But, they are negative, cash values to your budget. So instead, they are expenses that affect your monthly budget because they still come out of your pocket. So we just typically do not put them on a net worth statement because of the simple fact you don't pay it to a bank or financial institution. But in the next unit, we will talk about budgets, and so that's where we'll talk about rent and utilities. Okay, now you need your little piece of paper that I gave you in class. So we're going to go to page 19, and you're going to put your little paper on your in your notebook. So just tape it down. Notice my tape is right here. And then we're going to determine Wayne's net worth. So as we read through the problem, I'm just going to determine what are my assets and what are my liabilities. So everywhere I have an asset, it's underlined in green. Everywhere there's a liability, it's underlined in red. So it says Wayne owns a house with a value of $215,000. So if he owns that house, and that is a typo in there, there should be an additional zero. That's $215,000, not $215. Hope nobody lives in a $215 house. So the $215,000 is underlined in green. Okay, he still has a mortgage on this house for $175,000. So notice, part of the house is an asset, but at the same time, he hasn't paid for all of it, so therefore, the part that he hasn't paid for is still a liability for him. Okay, he has a car that's worth $12,500 with a loan of $4,000 outstanding. So even though that car is worth $12,500, he's not going to get full credit for that whole $12,500 on assets because of the simple fact, or on his net worth, because of the simple fact he still owes $4,000. So that $4,000 is still going to take away from his net worth at the time. Okay, he has $1,875 worth of electronic equipment. So since he owns that equipment, probably paid for it with cash or whatever, he owns it, so it's an asset. He's got a savings account of $2,400. So savings accounts means that is money that you have in your bank. So that means you own it. It's an asset. He still owes $1,275 on his credit card. So that's debt that you owe. That's a liability. So all the numbers have been filled into the table. Excuse me. The house value was already given to you. It's an asset, so it has a positive cash value. Your mortgage, which you still owe, is a liability, so it has a negative cash value. The car value, so anything of value is an asset, is $12,500. So the asset is a positive. The car loan, the part that we still owe, is a liability, so it's a subtraction. The electronic equipment, which we own, is an asset. It's a positive. The savings account is a positive, so it's an asset. And the credit card debt, since we still owe it, is a liability, which is a subtraction. So now I've taken all the assets and put them together and added them up for a total of $231,775. Then I take all the assets and the liabilities, and put them together and add them up. They have a grand total of $180,275. So we can automatically tell this is going to be a positive net worth because our assets are more than our liabilities. So now we take the two and subtract them, and we end up with $51,550 as our positive net worth. And that's all it is to calculating net worth, guys. Very simple. Assets minus liabilities, or liabilities minus assets. Just subtract the two and you get your net worth.